千里之行，始于足下. A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. Welcome to Tao Talks with Derek Lin, where we delve deeply into the Daodejing by Lao Tzu. So, when you achieve without doing a whole lot of work, you might have thought that it was just luck. But what if it was a skill that can be refined through practice? That's what Wu Wei is. Everything becomes easier when you become more skillful in the art of living life. It's smooth, it's graceful, it's incredibly creative and effective. And that's what brings us to the third and final characteristic of the sage. And here is where we bring about the element of traveling, because the last line, achieves without striving, maps to line 3 and 4. The further one goes, the less one knows. So line 8 corresponds with lines 3 and 4. And I want to make a note here that because they correspond, you can tell the further one goes means not just distance, but how far would you go to get something done, meaning what would you do? How much would you do? So the further one goes can also mean the more you do or the more you strive. In a similar way, the less one knows means not just understanding, but also the less you achieve. So when we say the further one goes, the less one knows, you can rephrase that without losing the meaning by saying, the more you strive, the less you achieve. And when you say the more you strive, the less you achieve, you find that it maps exactly to the last line, achieves without striving. So now let's focus on the travel aspect of it. The further one goes, the less one knows. This is usually difficult to understand because we assume travel to be a good thing, to be a learning experience. But I'm going to show you, I'm going to demonstrate how this makes a great deal of sense. In fact, it makes all the sense in the world. This is where I want you to look deeply into the nature of travel from the Dow perspective. This is something that applied equally well in ancient times as it does today. In ancient times, sages observed that they can walk around, and when they travel at walking speed, they can observe everything. They can see how things are. They may see someone, they may pass by someone they know, they can wave in greeting, they can yell out to that person's name, they can ask about them, they can ask about their well-being. How are you? Hey, long time no see, that type of thing. We do the exact same thing. So walking permits that type of experience. But then you think about what happens when you run instead of walk. You don't have as much ability to notice what's happening because you are running, you are in a frantic rush. When you see someone you know, maybe the best you can do is, hey, maybe a quick wave. There's not going to be enough time for you to have a chat with that person. You would simply be running toward wherever it is you are going to. And this becomes even more extreme when you are riding a horse at a gallop, or perhaps riding in a carriage, horse-drawn carriage, traveling at a high rate of speed for much longer than you are able to run. So when that is the case, you have even less of an ability to notice what you are traveling through. You can't really see what's going on. You don't notice all the subtle details. Now, we have similar experience in modern times. Before we go there, notice this pattern. Walking, a lot of observation, a lot of knowing, a lot of noticing of little details. Running, less noticing, less knowing. Riding a horse or carriage, even less. So this was true in ancient times. Now I know, so in ancient times, the sages could tell that you can travel a long distance when you are riding a horse or carriage, longer than you can manage by running. But you know the least of all. When you run, you can travel further than you can by walking within a short period of time, but you know less than when you did as you were taking a slower paced walk. So that's a pattern that's always true, no matter what. The faster you travel, the further you go, the less you notice, the less you are able to tell what's going on. Now it makes perfect sense. The further you travel, the less you know. How about in modern times? Well, we have many more transportation options. It's not just walking and running. I can be getting on a skateboard, a bicycle. I can be riding a motorcycle. I can be driving a car. I can be riding on a bus or the train. The same pattern applies. Notice that the faster you go, the longer you can travel, the further you can travel to a particular destination that you could not reach before by walking or running. But the less you know about the journey getting there. Imagine, riding a train from one city to another. Well, it's at a high speed, you're going through the countryside. You're not really noticing a lot of it. Everything is passing by in a blur. That's what it means. So what is the ultimate form of modern travel, modern transportation in that sense? Well, it's the airplanes. When you fly across the country or from one city to another in an airplane, well, you can forget about noticing any details. When you're in a train, you can at least pick out some landmarks. When you're in a plane, you may not be able to see those landmarks clearly at all. And this reminds me that many years ago, I was constantly traveling on business. I flew from one city to another all the time, all over the US and Canada. So I could say to other people that, yeah, I visited all the major cities. I've been here, I've been there, I went to that city. But did I? This is the question from Lao Tzu. Did you really go there? In the sense that, what can you tell me about that place? What did you find out or learn about that place? If you did not learn anything, if you don't know that much about the place, then what is the difference between you staying home and going there? What a sobering question. Yeah, I say that I visited all the major cities of North America, but did I? Traveling on business meant I had a specific focus for every trip. I would arrive at the destination. The airport terminal was familiar. Sure. But what about the city itself? Well, I don't really know that much about it. I know the inside of the airplane, the airport terminal, the hotel lobby, my hotel room, if I was staying there for several days, the conference center, the office building, but that's not the city. That's not what makes that particular place special. So it's extremely true that the further you go, the less you understand. Certainly that was true for me. And you can imagine how this extends as a pattern to cover all life situations. In other words, you can imagine the more you gather tons and tons of information, the more confusing everything gets because there's never any time to get into anything deeply. What you gather is a mixture of good and bad information, and there's no quick way to tell what's quality information and what is not. Greater complexity leads to greater confusion. So Lao Tzu was right. He hit the nail on the head. The further you go, the less you understand. So therefore, from the complex to the simple, how do we handle the complexities of life? Well, in the Tao, it's actually simple in the sense of simplifying complexity. So then, from the many to the few is one manifestation of complexity, simplifying complexity. Discard physical clutter. You probably don't need a lot of things that you have lying around. They can be let go. Unlearn old concepts that no longer serve you. I especially find that to be true in studying the Tao because there are so many ideas that require further investigation and require that I let go of old ideas that are not very useful. Replace them with the practical ideas from the Tao. And emotional baggage. This is about regrets from the past. This is about the things that I wish I could have done differently. I'm dwelling on that. I keep living in the past. I have to let that go. It's a way to simplify my mind. And there's also, the Tao also talks about a way to go from the difficult, transform the difficult to the easy. So for instance, break up a daunting big project into component tasks, into parts. And then each task that you break them up into can be further divided into component subtasks. And when you have enough divisions in all of that, you can execute on the smallest, easiest task, and then move on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. That's how you transform the difficult to the easy. So that's one implication of this. The initial level has to do with Wu Wei and Pu, which, as I said, is the principle of simplicity or simplifying complexity. So how do we do that? How do we achieve by practicing Wu Wei? First of all, we have to proceed without selfish or egocentric motives. So the expression for that, 无私无我, proceed without selfish or egocentric motives. When you are not acting with a selfish agenda, your focus is on the greater benefits for everyone, not self-serving, not self-dealing, not what would be advantageous to yourself. And then acting without trying to draw attention or showcasing yourself, because that would be a manifestation of the ego that would be out of a very egocentric motive. So 无私无我. And then the other part of it, 无是无非. This means that you approach the situation without prejudgment on what is right and what is wrong, or who's right and who's wrong. Especially true when there is a contentious situation. When there's contention, you want to be the neutral party that does not favor one side or the other. You want to win and keep everyone's trust. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Let us travel safely. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.